Okay, so nice to be here. It's kind of an amazing setup. I didn't realize I was in an actual house building. So Boris has been trying to convince me to come over here since quite a few months, and I finally gave up. So persistence mattered. Not that I think that that I'm that important to be there, but hopefully the story is inspiring. So he told me, and I'm just going to blame it on him, that I can just share my story, and hopefully there are some lessons there, and hopefully it's inspiring. I think it's interesting in the light of playing with different things, experimenting with different things, and just showing how many things we did. So I'm going to tell my story. Hopefully there are some lessons there. There are a few shameless plugs because I always need to have a reason to be somewhere. And then we have questions. If you have questions on the way, just ask them. How many of you know, because it's kind of the biggest and it's been around for the longest time, how many of you even know what Applicake is and what I am? Okay, so just great. So Applicake is my first company, and not just mine, luckily, and it would not be possible if it was just me. I just need to get rid of this. We started in 2006 as 4 people. It's a screenshot from a cool video we made in 2012 when we were celebrating, 5th birthday. That was 2011. Myself and 3 of my amazing co-founders. It started kind of accidentally with Pavel, this guy, going to Sweden, getting some contract work as a Ruby on Rails developer when Rails was still a very new framework, just invented by David Heinemeier Hansson. And he came back. The Swedish company asked him, hey, we have a project for you, just get some friends, teach them Rails, and we'll pay you what then we thought was a lot of money, which was not that much money in the end, considering how much time we spent on that. But essentially, we took the chance. We started Applicake, which I think the original name was Piba, for a code name for 3 weeks, because it's Pavel, Ella, Agata, and Bartek. And yeah, that's how it started. And for a long time, we've been doing just this. So this is our website, which you might know. We did mobile and web application. Typical agency. From day one, we were just focused on working with companies from outside of Poland. We had very quick adventure with one Polish client. We did not like it at all. We all spoke English. English. Und Deutsch. And we just thought that's the you can also charge higher rates. So it was a very strategic decision from day one to just position ourselves to get international customers. There was some naivety in there because we thought, okay, if we're the best consulting house in the world, maybe Facebook and all those cool startups want to work with us. We kind of know that doesn't kind of work that way because the best companies hire people; they don't outsource work. But we got a chance to work with some really great startups in the 6.5 years of that adventure, because Applicake has been around for a long time, and it's amazing because you get to work with different clients and you get to advise them because they don't know what they're doing. They're just starting their own startup usually, and you get to see different business models. You get to talk to people with different backgrounds. You get to strategize with people, have product discussions. You learn project management. So it was an amazing journey for us, and I think we were just talking about it with Marek on the train. If not for the fact that we know agile project management, we know how to, we know how to do weekly iterations. We always had to do that as a consulting house because we just had to, that was kind of the service we were doing. I think it helped us tremendously on working on different projects, and there were quite a few different projects on the way. This is one thing I think that's important in the whole journey, and I think it's just important for us that we always cared about the environment we work in, people we work with. So Applicake was this friends and family company that grew to 30 people at the biggest. We then decided we don't want to scale it because scaling a consulting company means you need to have middle level management, and it's just a different type of business. So we never wanted to. We kind of reached the border when hiring more people would be detrimental to the culture. and we did not know how to scale it. And we kind of never wanted to do consulting long term because we always thought, you know, we have some great ideas, we can probably pull it off with a project. So this is our office. These are kind of old pictures. That's the picture from our sailing trip. The team culture is very important. We did crazy videos. We would send our clients different postcards, and we did this Ruby lived up, which is still online if you want. You know, it's kind of, we were embarrassing ourselves a lot there, so it might be fun to watch it. It's on Applicate YouTube. So this matters because we were so out there on the internet, and I'm sure many of you heard of us. It was just a software consulting company. Like, it's kind of no big deal. You know, you can predict what the numbers were, even like consulting rates, costs of employment. Everybody knows that, margins, you know, 30-40% maybe. It was not a hugely big business, but because I think the way we structured it helped us do many things later on, and connected us with the right people, because many people fell for our spirit, for our culture. They felt they understand us. I remember the day when we decided, okay, we have no idea how to sell. We did not have money in the bank. After the first year of running Applicate, when kind of the 2 big clients that we had kind of run out, and we did not have good references because we did not know what we were doing back then, so the code quality was not that good. We went to the United States and waited on tables in New York, on Long Island, and coded at night, but this way we saved money to kind of be able to survive, to pull it off. But there was a conscious decision one day, like, how do we sell, how do we make sure people want to pay us for what we're doing? Because we're like bunch of kids, and think of us like in a garage in Bangladesh are probably, you know, more, you know, believable. So we decided, okay, we need to be very outgoing about our culture. We need to blog. We need to put our pictures out there so that people, you know, to limit the risk of somebody who's paying us a lot of money and they never see us most of the times because they're somewhere in California. So this makes sense in the story later on. So just bear with that for a second. So chronologically, we started different projects. We had this one project launched in 2007 called TripPL, and it was, as you might imagine, a travel network, and it failed. We were continuing building it for, I think, 1 year. We did not really know, you know, why we were doing it, or, I mean, we wanted to build a product. We did not really know much about how we were going to pull it off, but you know, we were still like 21 and not being very strategic about things, and this is okay. And you know, you don't value your time that much. You mostly experiment with things, like you're a student, you're doing different things anyway. You know, we were always active in different associations, so it's kind of the same approach. Just like do something and see if it works. And this didn't, by the way, but it was a very bad year for the tourist market anyway. And I think Agora, so like one of the biggest Polish publishing companies, they did a service back then called Kolumber. Some of you might have, like someone here must have been involved in making it, or because not Guru, right? And they didn't make it anyway, and they had all those Pascal books, and they had so much distribution and so much advertising, like free advertising, and they didn't pull it off. I think it was just very difficult to pull it off. So we closed, but it was a lot of fun, and we definitely learned a lot of like that building more features doesn't solve the problem, which is like, you know, if people don't want to use your product in the first place. I mean, people wanted like 3,000 people, but you know, that's definitely for a service that's not charging money, that's not enough to make any money. So we did some stupid projects like Cupcake Ipsum, which is like a lorem ipsum generator. It doesn't make any sense other than that it went viral, and we're still like getting tweets from that and so on because people love it. And if you use it, I think it's still up there. We were cleaning our Heroku account recently, but I think it's still up there. And we got a lot of kind of inbound interest to Applicate in general, and a lot of kind of good karma in the community for putting things online that, you know, if you're a designer and you don't want boring lorem ipsum, you just use Cupcake Ipsum, and there was a plugged Applicate there as well. So, you know, you would just, I think in the favorki as well, like everything is in English, but there are favorki because it's, I don't know if it's Krakow. So And there is the next thing we did chronologically in 2010 was this conference, European Ruby conference, because we were always active in the community, and I was the lead organizer together with two more guys, to be fair. And you do it, it's a nonprofit work, it kind of rotates every single year, it's in a different place. And we decided we want to do it. It was so much work, actually, which we didn't expect, but we really cared to make it happen. We produced it very nicely. It always sells out because it's a kind of rotating event that many people follow. Yukihiro Matsumoto, the creator of Ruby language, always gets there. And we got friends with all those core people in the Ruby community through doing an event, which was not supposed to bring us money, and it didn't even bring us customers, but it further validated the fact that we are there in that industry, and we care, I guess, to make a difference, and we want to stay involved. Can you? Hey, am I speaking loud enough? And am I speaking slow enough? It's good. It's fine. Great. Okay, so. So from this, because Yuruka was such a success, and we actually made close friends with many people, we decided we had that domain because 2 years before there was another thing we did, like a testing company with my other co-founder, which didn't, we also failed. I mean, we kind of never put enough energy into it because we realized we were not interested in testing that much because it's fucking boring. So we kind of, it wasn't a failure, it was more like, oh, okay, let's not do this. But we had this domain and this name, Railsberry, and we kind of liked it because we used to be a Ruby on Rails consulting house. And so we said, okay, we did that event, Yuruka, and it was such a success, and let's do it again. Let's do a commercial event that time. And the goal for us actually was to hire more people. Like the main assumption was not to lose too much money. It was supposed to be like kind of the hiring cost, because we knew it would cost a lot of money to produce it. It's like, I don't know, like 200,000 as well to produce it if you take into account catering and so on. So, ticket sales are cool, but you really need to do a lot of sponsor work to even like make even. So we put that site online, actually with Soha, my other co-founder, and we started blogging how much we want to get involved here. We knew many people, so many people confirmed that they would come. And suddenly it kind of exploded, because on the first day when we released tickets and they were like 220 euro, we sold out in 7 minutes, or like something ridiculous like that. We were like, everybody was buying, like people were like sending us pictures of like happy dance. If you go to Raspberry, it's like well documented, the tweets, the pictures of like videos of people. It was crazy. So we didn't expect that, but it came from all that kind of goodwill we've built around ourselves before. So we would do those kind of mashups. These are our speakers. We would blog, and these are like people well known in the Ruby on Rails community. We would take like the sponsors, and we would, before they even sponsors, we would do cool mashups with their logos and say, hey, want to sponsor? Want to throw like a few thousand euro because it's going to be awesome? Like Heroku, GitHub, and all those other companies suddenly wanted to take on board. Like they paid us to get that artwork printed on their t-shirts because they liked it so much. So suddenly we find ourselves in the middle of like, okay, this is one of the investors, because at that time I already started doing the Krakow startup community, which Marek is going to talk about. But Fred Wilson is one of the investors I follow. I think he's a really smart guy. He blogs at avc.com. So I really wanted to convince him to come over. So we would send him those images like, hey, like you want to come to, that's actually his like Twitter picture, because he has this image. Like, hey, come to Railsberry. And we would send him the pictures on like Union Square Ventures, where also he lives. Like, it's just close flight to Krakow, and we would just like attack people we wanted to get and attack sponsors we wanted to get with that shameless like optimism, I guess, and they fell into that. Actually, he did not, but we're in touch since that. Now I met him later on, and he's difficult to get. He's a busy guy, and we've been in contact since that time, and I think I've gained some karma points there for the persistence. It doesn't really make too much sense for him to come to a Ruby conference. He's an investor, like he would. Which didn't matter that time. So some pictures from the event. We had, like it was just like a hell lot of fun. And if you go online, if you want to send the videos, I can probably send out some links. I don't think it's time to show that, but we did it again this year. Again, it was a tremendous success because we're kind of steering away as Applicake from just web development. We also did a mobile event, which I guess you can say was also a tremendous success, and also commercially it made a lot of sense. It was a very as for the event, it was a very substantial, injection into our account, which is awesome. So this year Dorota was producing 2 events, so somebody else took it over, which is one of the things I want to talk about, which is because we didn't do all those things alone. Like I did not do them alone, and I was maybe a small percentage in making that happen. And how, like, let's say Raspberry, Dorota took it over. Hive, Marek right now is doing such a good job. Base, which I'm going to talk about, there's a whole big team of like really talented people, like bringing it further, which is awesome. So maybe. And on the way, we also did this stupid game. We had this intern call, and he was an Android intern, and he really wanted to work with us. He sent us this long CV, how, we're the place where he has to be, and, he loves us and he follows our blog. And we're like, dude, like, we don't even, like, you're not good enough to work with clients, like, we don't have time. And he's like, yeah, but I will work on something. And he made that game. And it's called Muffin Soup. It's really basic, but right now we're just releasing the iPhone app because we decided we'll finish it because it's getting like hundreds of thousands downloads in somewhere in like Middle East. So there's right now it's serious. It's like one day, like I think it was like maybe half a year ago, somebody was like, "Did you see that?" Like, because we forgot about it. Like, did you see how much traffic we're getting from that? So we're essentially. Just right now using a Y Combinator company called Make Games With Us, and they're an iPhone app platform, and we're making a model where we can actually make money on that, and we'll see what happens. I think we're just going to submit it in a week from Applicake, and actually the guy who's taking care of that right now will have some equity in it because we said like, okay, this is not our main focus, we cannot focus on that, but if you want to have some equity in that little project, and if you want to finish it, then you're free to do it. I mean, apparently people like it in the Middle East. So Hive is the Krakow startup community. The story here is pretty easy. We always had people visiting Krakow. We knew of people visiting Krakow. I know it sounds shameless, but I'm pretty well networked, I think it's safe to say. So whenever somebody was in Krakow or I had a chance to introduce them, we just wanted to like show them to people because it makes sense if somebody really smart is in Krakow or somewhere and you don't use this opportunity to share their story with people live. So Hive just started like this. So because we wanted to just make that happen. And actually, the story here is that Piotr, the co-founder of Hive, he emailed me like 5 times, like we have to make this happen. I'm just coming back from Denmark. And I think maybe Marek will talk more about what it's doing, but it's also a story of persistence. And it's cool because right now, whenever somebody prominent is in Krakow, like Joel Spolsky was our guest last week, and he is a well-known guy in the community, the founder of Stack Overflow, of Trello. He has like a couple of 100,000 following, and I guess like his more active blog post gets like 10 million views or reads, which is crazy when I learned about it. And and he gets to share his story just because we have this platform, which is Hive, and it opens some doors as well. So this is kind of the story of up until this moment is the story of a software house that was playing with different ideas, and with running events, with developing stupid projects, with making stupid viral videos, and then we also wanted to. You probably know of Y Combinator, and I knew about it. I knew about it as well, and I told myself, well, we can probably pull it off and get there, right? Like if some people get there, we can probably do it as well. So we got there. We applied there with a project that was on our mind since like few months. It wasn't a success, and I will talk about it why it wasn't, which I think it's also a good story. But just manifesting that we want to do it was enough in this case to make it happen. So we applied with this idea called Predict. It's actually, before I come back, it's actually me, Paul Graham. He's the main guy in Y Combinator. I think one of the most influential guys in Silicon Valley right now, and the 3 months of us being Y Combinator was essentially me fighting with Paul. And the way our interview happened was that we had an interview, usually it's 7 minutes, and you answer some questions, it's like very quick, and they didn't like our idea, and they're very blatant about it, and they were like, yeah, like we don't like the idea, we think it's stupid, like how is it going to make money? And we believed in the idea, so we're trying to convince them, but we and it went as it went. Like it took us like we were like 20 minutes, and then we leave, and like we don't know what's like if we're in or not. I thought I had a good conversation, and then he like runs behind me, and he's like, Ella, like, it's a stupid idea. Like, you can do so much better. We're going to open another interview slot for you in 6 hours. Go to Starbucks and come up with another idea, and we'll let you in if it's any good. So we spent like the 6 longest hours. Shortest in some cases, because it went like bam, like coming up with ideas. And because we were working with a bunch of startups before, we kind of had a list of ideas that we could work on, like a software for online hackathons, because everybody's hiring developers, and many companies have a distributed team. And so we had like those few ideas. We decided that we will go and tell them about the hackathon thingy, because we would use it. Like Applegate would use it, Base, which is another company that started, like I would talk about, would use it. I know I would pay for it as a company. So we go back there, and they and we start telling about it, and they start asking us detailed questions. And I'm like, hey, like we just came up with the idea, like don't expect that we have it all figured out, like. And he's like, okay, so do you even wanna do this? And I'm like, of course I don't want to do it, like I want to do the other thing. You just made me go to Starbucks. And I think, and it took us like 30 something minutes, and I think they were just impressed by the stubbornness, for good and for bad for us, right? But and I think at the end, I was like on fire way. I'm a salesperson, so I get on fire. And then I'm like, okay, do you have any other questions? And then like there were 4 people on the sitting there, and like I would just talk to PG, like Soha, my co-founder, and Mariusz, my other co-founder, sitting here. And I'm like, okay, the time is up. Obviously, it's been not 7 minutes, it's been like 40 minutes. And then I'm asking those like, okay, we have to go, but like, do you have any questions? Like, do you have any questions? Like, because we just, and they didn't have any questions, but like PG said, like, believe me, that's like kind of the most they talk today. So, in general, we stopped the car, we're on the motorway, they called us, like, okay, we still hate the idea, but you're in. So we stopped the car in the middle of a motorway, we took that shot. We took more shots after. So essentially, predictive. I think it's still a cool idea. We just put up put up information on the website that we're not longer going to work on it. It was going to be a meta. I don't want to spend too much time on this because we all know it's dead, so it's not that interesting. But like an attribution tool for the web. I still think it's an important problem to solve, and I hopefully want somebody solves it. There are a few actually projects in that domain. We actually had Anderson Horowitz wanting to invest in that. Like they sent us an email, Mark Anderson, who's also one of my other dream investors, like this is exactly what we've been waiting for, exclamation mark. A few days before the demo day. And I emailed YC, like, it doesn't mean they want to invest. And like, yeah, like they want to invest. But at that time, it was at the end of YC, and we kind of realized that it would not work the way we wanted to work. After we launched, it's kind of like a lean startup thing. We launched, we tested some assumptions, and it would have taken, we would have had to take a different path to what we wanted to do. Essentially, we would have to start from the marketplace and start by building a scalable agency, which is a whole different story. But essentially, when we got that email from one of my dream investors that they want to invest, we were kind of like sure we would not be doing this, and I just emailed them like, hey, this is awesome, like I really want to work with you one day, but I don't think we're in a position to take money right now because we still have things to figure out also on the team, and also we grew the team a bit too big, so we knew that we would have to make some changes. And since that time, we came back. That was last summer. And obviously the mantra of YC, make something people want. That's essentially what they tell you every single day at every single office hours. And I'm happy to talk more about YC and questions and answers. I'm not sure what you know about it. It's just a very good incubator and an investment firm. This is in our house with our housemates, also another YC company. This is us and friends, not the whole team. Just so when we came back from that summer and we didn't know what we were going to do yet, we were like, okay, so we have this other app that we've been working on as a side project because we have tons of them apparently. And we used it for the conference. It's like a conference app on Android, on iPhone. There's an Android tablet app and there's an iPad app. And we thought, okay, why wouldn't we just, if we're running those big developer events, why wouldn't we just do our own ticketing and like turn it into a service? So that's what we started doing. After that, like we didn't even take a proper break. We were just like, okay, bam, let's do something else, and maybe, you know, maybe this works out, because this kind of makes sense for us because it will save us money, and like some other events use it as well. Like it's actually a solid service. Like DjangoCon used it as well. Here you go. And some events on Ukraine and a bunch of smaller events use the apps. And right now we're okay. That's I cannot talk about it. But so there is this thing, and we're still having a software consulting house. I used to be the CEO. When we went to YC, I stepped down from being the CEO of the company, and my co-founder Agata took over as a CEO. So we have this, which is, you know, bringing us some good amounts of cash. We have all those different projects. Some of them are making money, some of them don't. Events are kind of managed by Dorota, are kind of doing well financially. So many things, and many things that's sometimes good, but many things is sometimes bad. And one of the things we started on the way, which is very serendipitous and is Base, and you might have heard of Base. It's a sales tracking tool and a CRM. So if that doesn't ring a bell, it's a type of software every single company needs if they have more than like 1 to 3 salespeople, because they will need something to manage their sales and to communicate, you know, like who's dealing with that client, who's dealing with that account. So it started off, again, serendipitously, in 2007, when we, just a week or 2 weeks after we put up that website, new Applicate website with our pictures on it, and we started blogging, there comes an email from a guy who I thought back then was a teenager, and he's like, hey, I really like your website, and I really like your culture. Can we? Sure. No, they have a Skype call. They already told me before. And the guy is like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur from Israel. I'm running one of the biggest digital agencies in Tel Aviv, and I want to partner up with you on this something I built because my company uses Salesforce, another big company CRM. It's worth a couple of $1 billion, and we hate it. We hate the product. We think it's Microsoft in the Apple era, and like somebody should fix that. And we're like, do you want to work on me? I think he phrased it. I found that email. Do you want to work on this as David Herman Hanser worked on Basecamp with 37 Signals, like essentially like for free, which is like for equity? And we're like, no, we don't work for equity. We work for money. So, but the guy was persistent, and we scheduled a call and this and that, and finally we found ourselves like, because we just really believe he's a great designer, very strategic, and we thought, why not? Like, it doesn't cost us too much money. We'll have one developer doing this part-time. We have the margins of a software business are big enough for us to afford it. Like, we want to do projects one way or another in the end, so why not plant this seed and see what happens? And the project was called Pipe Jump at that time. It has a bad naming story. The company was called Future Simple, and then we're right now unifying everything at Base because it's really confusing, and we kind of wasn't, you know, like you always make some bad decisions. Naming decisions are pretty visible. So right now it's base and it's doing very well, and it's been growing like this. So this is when we started 2007. This is actually revenue growth. This is like nothing. This is when we changed the pricing. And this is January 2013. And this is not even like the beginning of the story, because the story has been like zero for a long time, right? Because we've been working on the project and it was free at the beginning and so on. So right now base is growing really nicely. It's 87 people right now, mostly 67 people developers in Krakow. There's a sales and marketing team in Chicago of like 20 people right now. We're just looking for a huge office in Krakow because we want to more than double the size of the development team at the end by next year. So there should be one person joining us every week, if not more. So this is a shameless plug number one. We're hiring and we're paying good money, and we're working on a really cool product. So we've got above $8 million in investment from mostly led by Index Ventures, which are investors in Dropbox, Skype, and MySQL, and some other companies. Yeah, and recently, because at some point you realize, okay, so we're doing all those things, and we're like planting all those seeds, and we planted them for a reason. Like we planted them for one of them to start growing really fast and be the thing we're working on. So when in January, we kind of realized that the graph of revenue is changing from this axis to a bit more steep axis, we're like, oh, hell, we need to do something about it. And what we did is that we thought, we emailed all our clients and said, at Applicake, and said, hey guys, like, no more software work, we're just joining the company. So Applicake joined Base, which kind of doubled the size of the development team. We could not do that earlier because Base wasn't ready. So this is why we also, if you're wondering, just in case, like why would they keep iterating all those projects if they had Base? It's all about the timing. So it made sense at the time, but in around March, we joined the companies, and right now the big kind of thing is focus, because that one seed is growing really quickly. So it's a huge market opportunity, and it's hell of a ride. So it's kind of exciting, and yeah, Vice is hiring, as you know. And so this is it. This is kind of the non-conclusive story. We have a shitload to do yet. So we're not done. There are many challenges because the company is growing so quickly. We literally just merged. So even the cultures. We're still working like what's the best way to do about the culture, because Applicake was a bit of a different company than Basis. So right now there's tons of things going on kind of in the back end, but this is kind of the story, and hopefully in a few months we'll have more news to share and so on. So it's kind of interesting. Okay, so just to make, it's getting more serious, it's like enterprise software and so on. So there's actually one more seed we planted in September, as we were like working on nicer on the event management platform and like recovering after the summer in Silicon Valley. I had a stupid idea of like if you look at the word underwear and if you like change 2 letters, it's actually there's a word nerd there. So nerd, like computer nerd, geek. And I bought the domain just because I have a whole list of like drunk domains of me buying them drunk. So and it's like underwear, and there was like a kind of a joke that we came up with, and then my co-founder Soha, who's a designer, she made this. Like I code better since I started wearing underwear, and obviously we just like posted it somewhere. There's a Facebook page by now. And like people started like liking it and like talking about it, and some people are email us like, "Is that serious? Like, are you actually doing a textile thing right now, just because you don't have that experience yet?" And I'm like, "No, not really." And like around December, my other friend who was working with us as a designer, and she used to work at the Krakow Academy of Arts, but she left because she hated. Okay, I'm not supposed to say that, no, because it's recorded, but she needed more challenges. She's like, I always wanted to do physical products, and she loves print design and she loves patterns, and they're like, you know, Ella, like we want to do this. Like if Applegate is joining Base, and we're not sure if we want to do enterprise software. We want to do the men's underwear company because it's fun, right? So, and I'm like, okay, I will invest. If you're doing this, I'm with you. I'm like, I'm going to put my money in it. So it started as this bad joke, and then this is the fit, and then it's one big kind of a joke. We posted that research, which actually was TechCrunched by the Next Web, and it was on TechCrunch and on the Next Web on April Fools, because we know people. and we kind of launched it on April. They launched it. I'm saying we because I'm I'm an investor and I'm an advisor, but it's been launched on April Fools, like Prima Aprilis, and kind of nobody realized that's a real company. But there's been like some articles like some traces show that it might be a real company, and like somebody did an investigation if that really is a real company, if that's going to happen. And there's a hilarious piece of research on like made up stats of like this dinosaur, he went extinct because he wasn't wearing underwear. This cat's iPhone battery lasts longer. And there's so much more of those. We just, obviously it's just like nonsense, but if there's Facebook, they're launching in 5 weeks, so that's my shameless plugs number 2. Number 1 was that Base is hiring, right? And they're launching a small limited series, and if anybody wants to be on the list, because you need to be on the list because it's so small, then you can email underwear Gmail. So there's like a collection is ready on Facebook. You will see tons of shit. It's basically fun, but turns out that Poland is good for textile production. They're great designers, and they're care for quality. That this is the website of like very 90s things, and it blinks, so it's awesome. There are washing instructions. It's the whole kind of thing. It's pretty funny if you want to check it out. And at our events, they were giving away the prototypes to 700, 800, more than that, developers, and the feedback has been amazing. And there's been tons of interest, and there's been a stage debut of a contemporary dance piece about gender and the roles of men and women. So we're just I mean, they are having fun with, but I'm having fun along the way. So it's launching in a month, and that's this probably like we're infringing some copyrights here. Okay, the third thing that I want to talk about is the party. We are graduating Applecake, as you see. This is how we're calling it. There's a party in Krakow, in Forum. It's an awesome location. And 29th of June, Saturday, so you're all invited to our Applecake graduation party. And we're going to celebrate the 7 years of Applecake, as we're just trying to decide which one is better, to announce it on Facebook. So the unconclusive of my story is, because there doesn't seem to be, it's more like a drunk person doing different things. You should allow yourself to do stupid things. You should fail often. You should learn whenever you fail. Like, you should analyze like why it didn't work out. This is the most important thing, and then repeat it until you succeed. I hate the saying like fake it until you make it, because I actually don't think you should fake it until you make it, but you should try until you make it. Like, you should believe it at every single point on the way, but we've never been too serious about things, and it worked for us. So you have to work hard, be very strategic, and know what the hell you're doing, but that's kind of the message. And I think our story shows it pretty well, that we've just tried all those things, and statistically, if you're doing 10 different kind of projects / companies, one of them will work if you're any good. And if you're not good, just get a job. If after 10 things, nothing worked, then you should probably consider getting a job at Base. The one important thing is you have to pick the people you work with very well, because that's the only thing that matters. Like, people will continue doing, continue growing the ideas. They will contribute work. This is kind of the only thing that really matters. So I was lucky enough to be invited to one of the conference called Founders for very important tech founders, which I was there, I guess, kind of randomly. So I had this picture of me on the Nasdaq, on the Nasdaq display on Times Square. So one thing that I want to say is that this is how the world like looks in media, like, and you have like article interviews and like I think there was a story in Wired, but it. From our perspective, like, and every single person that I've worked with and all my founders will agree, we have not done anything yet. Like we've taken a shitloads of debt from investors. Like we're essentially in the red, not because we're growing the company, right? We probably will take more investment, which is kind of cool, looks great, 8 million, blah blah blah. But it kind of still means you have a lot of work to do. So we know we're still in that position. We have a lot to do, and kind of the okay, this is. Me being a very important mentor, and this is kind of the good start, the good part of startup entrepreneurship, and this is us in the original Facebook house, because in the summer of the Silicon Valley we've been living like five houses from Mark Zuckerberg, and the original Facebook house is actually not far away, was not far away from us, and our friends' startup was based there, so they would do those parties at the pool, that you might know from the Social Network movie. But that's what it seems like. The reality is more like us doing this, like working really long hours, and like it's not that glamorous. And it's still like, the second I'm in Krakow tomorrow, like I will probably just like lock myself in the office with a computer, Red Bull and a coffee, and that's kind of the reality to it. So if any of that inspired you, because I have really colorful pictures and we have great designers and so on, this is how it looks, but this is how it feels, and it feels pretty. This is kind of like a very long night, I think. And you don't probably, like, this is like Diet Coke, coffee, Red Bull in a glass, Monster. It's not anything that you better, one more lesson is experiment, but make sure you know what you're doing it for, because you might, it's kind of a lot of work. Okay, if you have questions, that's it. I think that's it. So thank you, that's it.
You showed previously the income from the project, that there was nothing for 2 years, and you changed pricing. My question is, up or down?
No, yeah, that's a good question. It wasn't like so pricing is not just like how, pricing is one of the most difficult things in the company. Like in everybody will agree, as soon as you got the product right, pricing is the single hardest thing in the company, because it's a science. Like you don't want to be too expensive, but you don't wanna, okay, so I could talk about pricing forever, so this is kind of my topic. So essentially, every single time you're pricing something, you need to make sure people will still buy it, like they will agree to pay the price because they see the value in it, but you don't leave them with any, like, what's called customer surplus. Meaning, if you go to, like, skiing and you're in the middle of a mountain, and if a tea costs 1 zloty, you're like, of course I'm buying it, like I would pay 10 for it here because there's no alternative. So the 9 zloty that you would have paid is customer surplus. So the whole thing about pricing is that you want to make sure the transaction happens and somebody leaves you their money, but they don't have any of that, like I would have paid more, right? So it's kind of the art of that. And pricing, it's like even in the Starbucks, like all those coffees cost the same money to produce. It's like tiny fraction of the ingredients, like 20 cents. I'm guessing, I don't know that, and maybe the total cost of the building and the staff and everything. But essentially, you need to have different pricing because you're asking people how much money do you want to spend. So a student will just pay $2 for a coffee, and somebody who has a lot of money will pay $10 for the frappuccino with coffee with whatever else because they can afford it. So pricing is really interesting, and it was not just about the level of pricing, but the pricing model. And model is not just like how high are your prices, it's also what you're charging for. So for a long time, we had this assumption that base will be premium, pipe jam at the time. freemium, meaning it's free if somebody's using it, and after actually for a long time it was just free. I mean, it was first we charged something, right? Then it was free because we realized like nobody wants to pay us money, so we thought, okay, let's just bet on the mass and figure out a way to convert them to paying accounts later. So for a long time it was this, and then we had the flat pricing model, meaning there's been so many changes in pricing, but meaning you had to, after some number of contacts and leads, after some account usage, you would have to start paying us. But at that time, you were already an active customer, so the chances were you would pay us. And then we said, okay, we have it all wrong. Like, actually, there are many types of companies using the product. Because at that time, like 2 or 3 years into the company, and like maybe 1 or 2 years after launching, we already had some data on it. And big companies have a lot more money, and they want to pay you more. Not only this, but also, if something is too cheap for an enterprise, for a big business, they will not pay for it because it kind of signals bad quality. So then we introduced different plans, and then we introduced the per seat pricing, meaning it's not just you're a company X using the tool, and then when you have 5 salespeople, then you have to pay more. We actually said you have to pay for every single user, but as obvious as it sounds right now, the product was not ready for that for a long time. Like, we were not ready for bigger companies because the product, it needed many more features. It needed extra security. It needed to, even the fact that it was on the market for long enough, it kind of validates the fact that it's a legit company, because some big companies, like your sales data is very sensitive data. And so kind of many things let us focus on bigger accounts, bigger companies. We started PipeJump as a beautiful sales tracking tool for designers, whatever, something like this, because we knew designers and we knew freelancers and web professionals. And like every single investor, when we were raising the first round, which was difficult, what they asking us like, so are you a CRM? And if CRM is a customer relationship management where you have like, the whole customer database. And you're like, no, we don't want to be a CRM. We just want to be a beautiful sales tracking tools for a company like us, because we need that. And suddenly you realize that companies like us never paid for anything. Applicate was just like using everything at free, and only at a certain level, bigger companies paid. Bigger companies have, so it's a whole story of like how the product evolved, how we were able to position ourselves for bigger companies who are willing to pay, because freelancers never pay for things. Like, this is the reason why every single, freelancers are a great entry point for many companies, because you wish that they hire somebody and that they grow, and at some point they will have to convert to a paying account. But I mean, I'm generalizing. Some freelancers pay some things, but in general it's difficult. And companies, enterprises are used to paying money for things, and they're used to paying a lot. And if something is too cheap for them, it's actually bad, because they don't understand why would something like that. It's even a psychological cost. If they're paying a few $1,000s a month for their existing software, like Salesforce, like converting to something that's worth $49 a month, it's like, no, like they're fooling us. Or the person who's been paying a few $1,000s should immediately, they are admitting that they should lose their job because they've been making bad decisions for the company. So like psychologically, you're like, if somebody told you like, those jeans are 1 zloty, you would probably pay, but because it's cheap. But something like this iPhone is like 100 zloty, and you would be just like, I don't think it's a real thing. Like, I don't think, So there's a lot of psychology in pricing, and it's interesting to learn about it. And we learned about it from like books, but also from talking to our customers, and like wondering why they're not converting, and like wondering what's the thing in their mind that we know that they can afford us, but somehow that's not happening. So it just takes time. The company has been started in 2007, so it's like almost 5 years into the company, and we're still kind of figuring things out and still improving many things. It's a long answer. I'll try to make it shorter.
Okay, I think one more question because we're running out of time.
Or like, ask me a yes or no question.
Anyone wants? Okay, one more.
I want to ask about yourself and co-founders. What's your educational professional background?
What's my bug? My professional background is I'm a major. Yeah, no, yes. I have a BA in international business, and then I was experimenting with some different with like finance management and project management. But at the time, I already had the company, so I like dropped out. I'm not a perfect. I'm not a perfect education. Kind of ish, yeah. I used to do some programming in high school. I think at 14, me and my co-founder from the textile thing, we won a Motorola contest for like programming. Both of my parents are computer scientists. My sister, I was going to study physics, but then I changed my mind. I was like a physics Olympic thing, and my dream was to work at CERN. But I'm playing with programming right now, but I don't think soon enough I'll get to the point where I'm good enough for it to make sense for me to code actually. I can hack some things like on a simple website if I have to. Usually it's just not the best use of my time. I would love to program more. I think it's a skill that everybody needs to possess, and I'm sure my kids and everyone's kids will kick ass at programming because it's how you communicate with machines. So, no, I wish.
Cool. Thank you, Ella, for coming. Good stuff.